You know what? Let's just get right into it. TCU, Oklahoma State. Mike Craven, this is your game of the week. I know Mallory typically introduces it. I will let you go and introduce them formally as we go on. I was just kind of transitioning naturally. So
it was a good transition.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. We'll start off with Craven's game of the week, like Ish just said, and it's TCU versus Oklahoma State this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. You can watch it on ABC. TCU favored by 3.5. Over/under set at 68.5. Craven, what you think? You're going to be at this game, aren't you?
This one feels like it's going to be pointy. I know we think about Oklahoma State as this defensive team that wins that way, but they gave up 30-plus points and 300-plus yards to Texas Tech with their third-string quarterback. They allowed Blake Shapen to have his best day as a passer at Baylor, even in a win earlier this year. Spencer Sanders has been playing great, mistake-free for the most part football. Max Duggan doing the same thing. It almost feels like a mirror image game here where we're going to find out who the best team in the Big 12 is. From doing research, I found something that I thought was really interesting statistically. They both average exactly 46.4 points per game.
Interesting. Okay.
And the defenses allow within 1 point of each other.
Yeah.
TCU's at 23.5. Oklahoma State's at 24.5. So this is about as even of a matchup as you can get. I think TCU's getting those 3.5 points, 3 of them for being at home. This is pretty much a pick-em game. And the winner takes the inside track and a real, not an easy route, but a definitely easier route to one of those two spots in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I think looking at Max Duggan's games against Oklahoma State, and again, new offense, all that stuff, but I think it lends in his favor that he's played pretty well against them.
Yeah.
29-39 for 258 in 2019, which was not a good Max Duggan year. Let me preface that. A little bit, he struggled a little bit in 2020, but they won 29-22. He was 12 of 26, 265 through the air, and had over 100 yards on the ground. And so I agree. I think this is going to be pointy, and I think that the thing that's going to separate this one is I don't know if TCU is going to want to. They're going to want to run the ball, but as you mentioned, Oklahoma State's been very vulnerable through the air, right? Their secondary's been pretty bad against teams that just show any semblance of passing the ball. And so I wonder if we see them, we're not going to see them throw 60 times, but if we see maybe high 30s, low 40s from Max Duggan, we've seen he's very confident in that. The defense has slipped a lot. They're 98th in echo rate, 100th in EPA per pass. They're actually really bad on early downs as well. Early downs EPA, they're 113th compared to TCU, who is third on offense in early downs EPA. So Garrett Riley's very aggressive, gets a lot of good yards, puts themselves in very manageable third and fourth and short situations to where they go for it. I like TCU. This could be depending on how the season folds out, this may or may not be a preview of a rematch potentially in the Big 12 championship game. And we mentioned it last week. TCU Kansas would be I don't want to say an eliminator, but more or less an eliminator of a potential contender. This one could, whoever wins this now is in the driver's seat probably for the Big 12 to at least be in the Big 12 championship.
And we're starting to get to that time of year where we start asking the Sonny Dykes question.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
It's like these fast starts are par for the course. When he was at SMU, they went 8-0 to start 2019, 6-1 to start 2020, 7-1 to start 2021, right? He's had combined 26-2 in September and October as a head coach over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So he can get it done earlier in the year. But later on, they were 4-8 after October 31st the last 3 years at SMU. The schedule gets tougher. Conference teams know your personnel more, know what you're going to do, so maybe being a first-year guy in the Big 12 helps them a little bit. There's not as much of a book on what Garrett Riley wants to do, what that defense with Joe Gillespie wants to do, so maybe this is that year that they can buck that trend. But the schedule gets tougher for TCU down the stretch. They got Oklahoma State at home this week, Kansas State again next week. They still hadn't played Texas Tech, Texas, or Baylor. So we still have a lot to figure out with TCU. That second half against Kansas last week worries me for the defense.
Sure.
Now, it could be explained away of we game planned for a completely different type of quarterback. They ran a different thing in the second half. Our keys were off. It was more about that. But they gave up a lot of points. They gave up a lot of yards through the air. What is that secondary going to look like? Because as we mentioned earlier, Spencer Sanders not the turnover machine that he used to be anymore.
He's been very good this
He's
season.
ridding that skin, right? He shed that skin. So for TCU, you're going to probably have to win this the old-fashioned way, not be able to count on turnovers. And we can just see if the Max Duggan train rolls on, That running game, though, they didn't run the ball as well against Kansas. If they can get back to averaging 5 yards or plus against Oklahoma State, I think TCU wins this game.
Spencer Sanders 19th in the country in QBR right now. It's 78.6, 12 touchdowns to just 2 picks. Again, that's been the MO for him, is turning the ball over. He's not doing that this year. Oklahoma State looks fantastic on offense. They're back to like a Mike Gundy offense basically this year. So.
Do you think the Big 12 has to be one of the most, probably the most confusing Power 5 conferences out there? Just because in every other Power 5 conference, I think you at least know who's going to be number 1 or at least number 2. But I think the Big 12 is probably the most confusing out of all those conferences.
They're the deepest.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. The
most
deepest.
Competitive.
Yes,
I'd say right now they're because you could talk yourself into about 4 teams.
Yes.
ACC I would put up there. I think the Big 12 is better than the ACC. Don't get me wrong, but I'm similarly like. I mean, people are putting Clemson up there, but I'm like,
there's Wake Forest.
Last year, I was about to say Wake Forest was there. Pitt was. I mean, they're not there this year, but as far as depth and quality, I think Big 12
literally from top to bottom.
Sure, yeah. West Virginia is the worst team there, and like that's fine. Okay, put them to the side, but like it feels like everybody can get got by anybody in this conference.
Right.
And to that point, West Virginia is the worst team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They're only 3.5 point underdogs to Baylor this week.
True.
You know, so
that's
everything is
crazy.
pretty even. You know, and I think that's what's going to make the Big 12 interesting even when Texas and Oklahoma leave, is we can go to every conference and pick out the three best schools.
Yeah. Right.
And that's true 98% of the time. Occasionally it changes a little bit here and there, but for the most part it's Ohio State and Michigan, the Big 10, for example, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, USC out west, right, Oregon. And the Big 12, when UT and Oklahoma leave and that power vacuum goes away, and now it's Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, Baylor,
UCF.
Texas Tech, UCF.
It's going to blow even more wide open.
Yeah, every TCU.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. Like, it's really going to be an awesome conference to watch with a lot of parity.
Yep. All right, let's move on to my game of the week. Surprise, surprise. This is not a homer move. Craven actually suggested this one.
I don't believe it.
North Texas hosting La Tech this Saturday at 3 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN+. North Texas coming in as a 6.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 70.5.
I'm going to give some people betting advice real quick.
Okay.
Hammer that under.
Yeah.
I thought that had to be wrong. It's dropped down to 68, so you can't get that number anymore. But it's so high because North Texas gives up so many offensive touchdowns. They've given up so many pick sixes, a couple fumble returns, a couple of returns on special teams and stuff, to where their defense looks worse than it is on paper.
Sure.
If they can avoid turnovers, they should be able to beat La Tech. I mean, La Tech's not that good.
Yeah.
They beat UTEP by double digits, but that was a bad UTEP performance in the first half. They were pretty much even after the second quarter. And so North Texas runs the ball well.
I was going to say, they should be able to establish that run game pretty early and beat La Tech up front.
And La Tech doesn't run the ball at all.
No.
You know, they're an old-school air raid type offense
Sonny
that
Cumbie is the head
averages
coach,
under 100 yards rushing a game. So North Texas should be able to win this one in the trenches. They're coming off of a bye week. It feels like a mean green. I think they're favored by 6.5, we said.
Yep.
It feels like a mean green by a touchdown or more type game.
Right. Basically, I mean, like you mentioned, La Tech's a passing offense that can't really pass right now. Again, that's year one under Sonny Cumbie. They're kind of, they're 108th in passing EPA. They're 119th in rushing EPA. Like, they're really not great, basically, at anything on offense. And North Texas defense has been solid, right? Passing defense has been pretty solid. I think they should be able to control that game on that side of the ball. If they
got to get pressure on that quarterback.
Oh, sure. I think they will, honestly.
Because they're mistake prone.
Oh, exactly.
He's thrown a ton of picks this year.
Yeah. And I think where North Texas can be comfortable is just kind of have Osanani manage the game.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't need to come out slinging it around.
No.
Because the other thing is La Tech's defense pretty solid against the pass. They're not great, and I don't want North Texas to get baited into maybe thinking they could, dominate this game and maybe open things up and be like, oh, here we go.
They need to play it safe.
I think La Tech is 43rd in EPA passing defense. So, again, that is the plus side of their defense. They're awful against the run. To win that way, don't test them because, as we know, Osanani can. I think didn't he have a drop pick against FAU, like on the first drive or something like that? So, like, it could have been a pick six right off the bat. Don't get baited into that, please. Just let this go because, as we've seen, a bowl game is still within grasp for this, but they need to win the games that they're favored in, and this is one that they should. La Tech's a rebuilding program. you should be able to move past them with ease. So
First quarter is really important. UTEP
Yes.
fell behind last week against La Tech, and Gavin Hardison had to throw the ball 40-plus times.
Right.
And I think if the same thing happens with UNT, I think we're going to see the same exact thing happen with UNT.
We've talked about it before, but this could be one of those box score games.
Yep.
Where,
Yeah.
tell me how many times Austinani throws the ball and tell you if
Absolutely.
North Texas wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Exactly. So I think I'm looking back at the UTEP game right now. Yeah, and I completely forgot that's how Gavin Hardison, he threw it 51 times. And again, good quarterback, not one that you should be putting the entire game plan on. So yeah, I'm just kind of that's kind of where I'm at with that. So we hit on it. Let's wrap up our thoughts on Texas State Troy. Like you mentioned, if they don't follow up a big win with looking good, right? They don't have to. It's going to be tough to beat this Troy team. They're really clicking right now, like you mentioned, but they're still a really good team. They beat Western Kentucky. We know how good they can be, or they are, I should say. And you're on the road as well. Tough environment. If you come out and, let's say, have a James Madison performance, right, then last week looks a little like, all right, what happened? But if they come out, look a lot better, look like that composed team that really was focused in on a game plan, defense maybe make some plays. Okay, we'll see what happens at that point. And then you're looking at last week as building towards something.
Play a complete football game. Don't beat yourself. Make Troy beat you. I mean, sometimes on the road against better competition, you lose games, right? But, don't show up flat. Don't show up looking like, you won the Super Bowl the week before and that kind of stuff. If that App State game isn't followed up with good performances, then it looks like an aberration.
Yeah.
If you can turn this into not just wins, but just 2, 3, 4 really good performances in a row, then all of a sudden everybody in that locker room, everybody in the stands, everybody who's paying attention goes, something's different with Texas State, and that helps everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're 3-3 right now. We did not have them winning last week, so that's one in the pocket that we didn't expect. So who knows what happens? I mean, there are winnable games still on this schedule to get to bowl eligibility. We'll see. Mallory, let's move on to do we call this the wide zone, or is that, I forgot what we call this?
Of course. It
Okay.
was Craven's idea.
I was just making sure. I gave
him credit last week.
I couldn't remember if it was this or the Sunday show that we called it the wide zone rundown or whatever. My bad.
Well, it's this one.
All right,
So
well,
let's get to
run
it.
through
Poor
the wide
Craven.
zone, then.
He comes up with a good idea, and you can't
I
even
knew it was
remember.
called the wide zone. I didn't
can't even
remember
remember
if it was Wednesday or Sunday.
All right.
But anyway.
Anyways,
I don't
let's,
enjoy how Mallory is so impressed that I came up with a good idea. Because
I'm not impressed that you came up with a good
Because
idea.
to me-
I am giving you
Craven,
lots
right,
of
you did
credit.
a thing.
No,
Right.
that's not how it is.
Right, it's
You
like,
know that's
wow.
not how it
You
is.
did,
Wow.
you did a thing.
No, you know that's not how
It's
it
like
is.
you tussle your hair.
All right.
It's like-
yeah, that's how I treat Taco.
Pat you on the back. No, that's not what I'm. All right, let's just move on. Let's get into our first wide zone game of the week. SMU taking on Navy at home this Friday at 6:30 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN. SMU coming in as 13.5-point favorites. The over/under is set at 57.5. Do you think this is a little bit high? The line is a little bit high for SMU.
Navy's super bad.
They
Well,
they got a good defense though. They got a good total defense.
I was about to say, is it bad that I'm nervous about this game now?
I think this could
Yes,
be a
that would be
sneaky
bad.
defense.
Because
SMU doesn't win this game by double digits. There's something going on the hilltop that needs to be fixed. They're too talented at home on a 3-game losing streak. We got to remember, those games are against Power 5 teams that they've lost. Maryland, Power 5 team. TCU,
yeah.
Power 5 team.
They played Maryland pretty well.
UCF, for the most part, Power 5 team. They were up 13-10 at a half. What Navy does well,
they're not doing well
SMU's
right
pretty
now.
good at.
And they're also not doing well this season.
Yeah, they're not doing it well right now.
Yeah.
If SMU was an air raid if Navy was an air raid spread the ball out team, I'd go, oh, okay, this is a
Yeah.
problem, because we saw UCF's not a passing team, and they passed the ball all over the place. SMU secondary is really bad.
Yeah.
Navy is more of a grinded into the dust ground type team
Right.
that relies on the trenches, and that's where SMU is best. And then here's my other point. I think Tanner Mordecai is going to have a big game. I think Rhett Lashley is going to do anything and everything he
To
can
build his confidence back
to
up.
build some confidence back up, because there's starting to be should we see some Preston Stone type
Right.
conversations going on. Mordecai's thrown as many interceptions, which is 5, as touchdowns in this 3-game losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mordecai has one of those 400-yard, 4-touchdown. Rasheed Rice catches 200 yards. And Rhett Lashley, who's the head coach and the play caller, does everything possible to just get that dude some confidence.
Yeah, that's fair. I could say that. I could see that. I guess I'm nervous because they only lost by 6 to a pretty good Air Force team. Navy did. I'm not saying they're good, right? I think Navy's bad. I believe they're in the 90s in rushing, and that's what the triple option flex bone's about. They're supposed to be at least a team that's in the upper half, at least, of the country.
They've also held their opponents to pretty low-scoring games.
That's the thing that makes me nervous is they've made it ugly, right? And that's why kind of their games have been unwatchable. Is because when they're unwatchable on offense, they make the rest of the game unwatchable. Now, to their credit, Air Force also runs triple option. They could be just perfectly schemed against that, and so that just made for a good matchup for them. Who knows? I don't know how good Tulsa is. They blew out. They had a really kind of their best showing of the year against Tulsa last week. I don't want to look at it as like a trajectory game. One team's going up, one team's going down, whatever. I think SMU has the right scheme to absolutely dismantle Navy, right? They're awful against the pass. They're 131, which is second or third to last in the country versus the pass. So my hope is, yes, we see the simple game plan, get Tanner Mordecai going, and basically just have – and this, he's at home. It's all good. Like, it should be a very calm game plan for them, right? Don't make it complicated. Just get it done.
I might be at this one. It depends on if my colon stays in my body.
Well, let's –
I'm not supposed to laugh because you made it like a dry joke. So
self-deprecating humor is all I got.
God,
move on, Mallory.
Terrible. Jeez.
Get the camera off.
We're trying to get all right, let's move on here. Up next, we've got UTSA taking on FIU, and I believe this one is at FIU.
It doesn't matter.
I was going to say
it doesn't matter.
This is going to be a 90-minute game. This is going to be a 90-minute game over very quickly. It's at this Friday at 7 p.m. You can watch it on CBS Sports Network. UTSA coming in as 32-point favorites. The over-under set at 64.
Ish, I watch a lot of National Geographic. That won't shock anybody who knows me. You ever seen the killer whales where they take seals out into the middle of the ocean and then circle them and then let the kids practice hunting or whatever? That's what UTSA is going to do to FIU. They're going to drag them out into deep water, and then Frank Harris is going to go sit on the sideline and drink some, Kool-Aid, do whatever he wants to do, and the young roadrunners are going to get out there and learn how to play with food a little bit.
I was about to say it's like the killer whales throwing up the seals. They're just tossing them up. It's bad. Look, I'm going to reference Parker, Stats War on Twitter. He does win probability. I don't think I've ever seen a win probability this 99.3 win probability.
The only one I've seen bigger was the Texas Louisiana Monroe one.
That's a good point.
Because it was like 99.9 or something.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's bad. FIU's bad. It's probably, I think it's the youngest team in college football. They're basically playing a bunch of high school seniors right now. And it's a long rebuilding process for them. UTSA is a fully functional machine. So
the only thing that's going to stop UTSA is the city of Miami.
Yeah. Yes.
As long as they can keep them sequestered into their hotel room on Friday night or Thursday
I was going to say, well, this game is a Friday game, so it should be
That's
easier.
probably good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although Thursday in Miami is better than Saturday in San Antonio. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah.
We'll see. If you want to see some Eddie Lee Marburger tape.
Yeah, I was going to say, how quickly are we going to see ELM cook?
I mean, look, in my hope, late second quarter, or maybe Frank gets in a halftime, whatever. Then you just see Eddie for the whole second half. There's no reason to have Frank play the whole game. So we'll
Not
see.
at all.
What's next?
Let's move on to Texas versus Iowa State. This one could also be considered one of our games of the week, just because it will probably be pretty good. Mm-hmm. Saturday at 11 a.m. on ABC. Texas coming in as 16.5 point favorites. The over/under set at 49.5.
Did the state of Iowa outlaw offense and just not tell anybody? I know we're just outlawing things now with states. And I can't keep track.
I think Iowa State's at least trying. Iowa is purposefully not trying.
Right. Well, that's nepotism.
Yeah, this is just blatant nepotism on their part.
The Cyclones are bad. And I would like to make this point.
Yeah.
You remember how last year we talked about the 5-star culture versus the 5-star players?
Sure.
As soon as the starting running back for the Jets left Iowa State, it doesn't look like that 5-star culture works as much anymore. It's almost like, and stay with me here, stars matter.
Yeah.
Texas should dominate this football game. Iowa State can't score enough points to keep this one close. Iowa State's stop rate is excellent. They're a really good defense. They're always going to play good defense there. Mm-hmm. But Texas has too many weapons to not score 30-ish points.
Sure.
And I don't think if I gave Iowa State 8 quarters, they would score 30 points. This Texas defense is pretty good.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think the only games Iowa has been in are the ones that are just unwatchably ugly.
Yeah.
Right? They beat Iowa, which it was, again, set football back 30 years, 10-7, right? They lost to Kansas State last week, 10-9, right? They lost to Kansas 14-11. This is a very bad team, just bad to watch team. They're a fine team, right? As terms of just like the overall standings of the country, they're a fine team. They're a bad to watch team. Texas should not, and I don't think they will, because that's not Sark's MO. He's not going to get caught into a quote unquote slugfest, right? He's not going to make it ugly. His offense is very pretty to watch, and he's not going to get dragged down into this. He's going to have, if it does get ugly, okay, he has two bell cows that is just going to make it easy for him to call this offense. And of course, Quinn Ewers looked incredible last week. He has game breakers on offense. By the way, Texas' defense is good enough to even whatever Iowa State can muster on offense, it won't be enough because Texas' defense looks like they can tackle again. So, yeah, I agree. I think this will be a nice – last week was a nice showing, right? I think Oklahoma's bad, but I think this week will be a nice test because they're going against that five-star culture, right? Here's a team that's well coached. They are what they are. They know their style. They know how they got to win, how they have to win games. Texas can't get dragged into that. I don't think they will. I think they're too talented to. But let's see it, right? Let's see what happens. Like we saw it against Tech, where they got trapped into a game. Crap, we're up. Lollygag around. Tech's back in it. Can't happen this week. Don't think it will. Texas pretty comfortably.
Yeah, they're exercising demons this year, and one of the ones that they need to is just to win a physical battle.
Yeah.
Go win a fist fight.
Yeah.
And so if Texas can go beat Iowa State by double digits, cover the spread.
I was about to say, just go embarrass a team that wants to win a fist fight.
Right.
That's okay, that's what, again, not saying this year, but that's what national title contenders do, right? Yeah. You're like, oh, we got to get this physical. And they're like, cool, haymaker, right? right to the
We
right
can
to
beat
the
you
face.
this way. We can beat you that way.
Yes.
Texas needs to get back to that. We clearly know they got stars.
Mm-hmm.
Can that offensive line, defensive line just go win a 60-minute fist fight? I think they can.
Oh, yeah, I think so too.
All right, 2 more to go. Up next, Rice playing FIU at FAU, this Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN+. FAU favored by 4. The over-under set at 56.
Hoot, MF, and hoot.
Hoot versus hoot.
Hoot versus hoot. Oh, my goodness, it is a hoot off.
It is a hoot off.
I don't.
Good way to put it.
I'm kind of. I mean, this is a home field advantage, right? Basically, more or less.
Well, so here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
Gambling is not a predictor.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
That line
It's just
is not
what people are throwing money down.
And people still think Rice is Rice.
And they still think FAU is FAU.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has not been the case.
No.
Rice is much better than they usually are. FAU is not as good as what we think of as FAU in our head.
I think people. I know he hasn't coached there for a while, but I think people still think, oh, Lane Kiffin. They've just kept that train going.
Exactly.
Right?
I would be surprised if this line doesn't leak under a field goal to 2.5, 3, where it's just a pick 'em game. Bad teams tend to not play well on the road, but I'm not sure Rice is a bad team.
I don't think they're bad.
They play good defense. They play solid offense. The special teams are good. That travels.
Yeah.
And so if they can control the football and not turn it over, again, we talk about this all. If TJ McMahon doesn't throw interceptions, Rice is a solid football team that will be bowl eligible. And their 2 losses, they've given up 50 points.
Yeah.
And their 3 wins, they've given up 18.3. So for me, and a lot of that is because the offense has put them in bad positions in those losses, and in the wins, they've done a good job of taking care of the football. So this is another one of those box score games where if Rice doesn't lose the turnover margin, not only do they cover, I think Rice wins this football game and could be on track to be bowl eligible by the end of October.
Yeah, which is nuts. I think similarly to FAU's game against North Texas, I think they'll have the best player on the field, N'Kosi Perry, but North Texas kept him relatively in check. He played a good game, but they were able to kind of match some of his explosiveness with their own offense. I don't think Rice can let that happen because I don't think they have those type of players that I think North Texas does that can, they can system-wise, playmaking-wise, North Texas has those players on offense that Rice doesn't. I don't know if they have that at Rice to be able to stop if N'Kosi Perry throws for 300 yards, right? And so I believe he's at 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, so he's playing a pretty calm year so far. I can look at what N'Kosi Perry does, and I can say if Rice wins this game or not.
Yeah. It feels like a really important stretch for Rice because they have FAU, La Tech, Charlotte, and UTEP up next. And they need to win 3 out of those 4 games to get bowl eligible. And the reason I say that is because they end at Western Kentucky, at home against UTSA, and then at North Texas.
Yeah.
those are hard games to win. I think those are 3 out of the 4 best teams in the conference probably.
Sure.
And so you can't these are the type of games if you're Rice and you
2
have
on the
these,
road, by the way. Western Kentucky and North Texas on the road.
right.
So.
And so this feels like not a must-win game, but that margin of error gets smaller and smaller to reach a bowl game every year. And if they don't get to 6 wins, it's going to feel like a letdown because they stole that win against Louisiana. They changed the math. They're on path. Go beat a team that you're as good at.
Yeah.
If they win this game and play, a clean football game, do you think that we could pretty much pencil them in for 6 wins?
They should be able to beat Charlotte at home.
I'll say light pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Pencil's
what's
good.
Number 1.
Number
What's
one.
The number 3 pencil.
Maybe not
It's
a-
a number 1 pencil.
Number 1's the light.
Maybe
pencil.
not a pin,
Yeah.
but a pencil. If
Yeah.
I'm allowed an eraser.
Yeah. Right.
A pencil's good. A pencil's good because Charlotte's a win. That's 4 right there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Law Tech on the road. We'll know more about Law Tech after this week than we know right now. I do think they're better than UTEP, and so I think if they win this game,
And they look convincing,
yeah, and they look good. I mean, coming off a bye week, I think they're a bowl team. I really do. I really do think they're a bowl team.
I was about to say, I think they have the quality of a bowl team, definitely.
Yeah.
Sure, right.
I like that.
Now they're not deep enough to handle any injuries.
Right.
True.
That's their downfall
They gotta stay.
right there.
They gotta stay healthy. That bye week came at a perfect time. Like they couldn't have. I mean, it's dead middle in the center of the schedule. And so, I think if everything goes right, I really do. I think Rice is a bowl team.
Speaking of Rice, too, sort of, kind of, didn't you mention to me yesterday that Jake Bailey of SMU is out
SMU,
for the rest of
I should have mentioned that off the top. I forgot
season?
he was announced out
Yeah,
for the rest of the year.
he's
so
out for the year.
that's a huge loss for that passing attack because he was starting
For
to kinda
SMU,
come
yeah.
Yeah,
to
he was
form.
starting to come around.
Yeah.
He's talented.
Yeah.
Very talented. So
All right, let's round it all out with Baylor playing West Virginia. Is that right?
Thursday, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh my gosh. It starts tomorrow. Week
Oh
7
my
starts
goodness.
tomorrow at 6 p.m. You can watch it on FS1. Baylor coming in as 3.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 54.5. Is that like kind of insulting that line is so low to Baylor at least?
I think people don't know what to think of Baylor.
I was about to say,
Yeah, it's
because
just
I don't
question
think
marks.
West Virginia is very good.
Yeah.
I think that Texas score flatters them. There was a 38-20.
Yeah.
I think that flatters them a lot. They did have a solid. Now that we know that Kansas is good, they had a solid showing
Yeah.
against Kansas, right? But I still think they're the worst team in the Big 12. But as Mike Craven said, it's pretty solid, right? You throw them in any other conference, they're probably closer to middle of the pack. I think it's more of an indication that people don't know what to expect from Baylor. They don't know if Blake Shapen's going to be consistent. They don't know if Richard Reese is going to be a consistent, established run guy for them. Their defense has not been as good as it was last year. I know they lost playmakers, but it's still, you would think Dave Aranda would have like a structure in place. I don't know. I mean, I still obviously lean Baylor, but I mean, it would not surprise me if we look at this as a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. We're like, what's happening?
Because that Baylor secondary can get got.
Yeah.
If you get enough time to get the ball out, West Virginia can throw the ball around. They run an air raid. They're going to score some points. Graham Harrell up there calling plays and stuff like that. The offense is
That's
getting
right.
better and better each week. I think this is going to sound weird. I think this is going to be one of those games where Baylor has to outscore West Virginia. And that's where the concern comes from Baylor. This is no longer a defense where you can go, we just need to score 25 points. We're going to win this football game.
Right.
If we get to 30, we're undefeated.
Yeah.
And now, after what Oklahoma State did, what BYU's done, Texas State had some success through the air and scored some points offensively. So this is no longer that shutdown Baylor defense where the offense just has to hang on and score some points and play ball control. Baylor's, Blake Shapen and that offense is going to have to go out and do some stuff. I think this line is too close. I would lean Baylor minus 3.5, maybe just buy the hook, make it Baylor minus 3. But West Virginia can score well enough to where you could look up and this thing's like 35-31 and West Virginia has the ball last and you're worried about it.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So I again lean Baylor, but there are enough questions to where it's a little concerning. It could be a little concerning depending on how the game plan irons out. Like you mentioned, this is going to have to be a little bit more of the Blake Shapen and Richard Reese type of game. And their field position, I would say they have not had the best field position. They're 106 in starting field position in the country. So that offense has had to do a lot because that defense isn't kind of giving them really any easy situations.
Yeah, they just don't create a lot of big plays.
Yeah.
I know we think of big plays as offense, but it's as equally important defensively.
Well, to also be fair, I think they're also putting themselves offensive. It's complementary, right? Spavital talked about complementary football as well. I think the offense, in addition, has been a little conservative on early downs. I mean, they're 93rd in first percentage on early downs, right? And so I think they're not really they're setting themselves up to where 3rd and 10, Blake Shapen's got to throw, into double coverage or something and find an open receiver out of nowhere.
Because here's the dirty secret.
Yeah.
That offensive line isn't as good.
Oh, no, it's not very good at all.
And that was supposed to be their bread and butter.
Yeah.
They returned 4 guys. They returned Connor Galvin, the Big 12 offensive lineman of the year. They mashed people
Eric
last
Mateus
year.
is back as a line
right.
coach. Yeah.
I mean, they brought back center, 2 guards, and a tackle.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be really good, and they just have not
They've looked
been.
like they found something in the run game, right? The offensive line has. But, yeah, Blake Shapen's running a lot more than I think they anticipated.
Yeah. And that's what stops them. They're a first down run team, get to 2nd and 6, and figure it out from there.
Yeah.
They hadn't been able to do that as much this year.
Exactly.
And if you're wondering why there are not many games this week, we've got 4 teams that are idle. Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Houston, and UTEP.
Bunch of teams that need a bye.
Off this week. All teams that absolutely need and will take advantage of that bye week. Now, before we go, I do want to ask a question.
Yep.
How much, if you've got a team, if you're on a bye week this week for these 4 teams, how much preparation do you do versus how much relaxing time do you do?
The coaches or players?
Let's go players.
Players get to relax a little bit more. Is it going to be more mental rep stuff?
Yeah.
Get back into the weight room, do some film. For the coaches, it may be busier than a game week
I was about to say, you might get one day
because
Right.
you're self-scouting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You turn around and
That's a
you
good
start
point.
scouting yourself, and so coaches never take a break. They're addicts.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is they're to the wall the whole year.
Right.
I think it's better for the players because these are 18 to 22-year-olds that can take a step back, who can take a week, get better in the classroom, take care of some of that stuff that you need to. Those bumps and bruises that have been adding up. It's not only just 6 weeks of the football season; it's 4 weeks of training camp too.
Right.
So they've been going at it for 10 weeks. Get to rest your body. You're not going to hit as much, but you're going to do as many mental reps as you normally do.
Right. Cool.
So, yeah, I think
like
so.
it.
That'll be, like you mentioned, a bunch of teams that need
Yeah.
Need it.
some rest, especially UTEP.